The sound of a human rib breaking is something you never forget. It's not a clean snap. It's a wet, muffled pop that echoes through your whole body. Evelyn Carter heard that sound before she felt the pain. Her fiancé, a Chicago police detective, had just kicked her in the chest while she lay on the kitchen floor. Desperate and dying, she grabbed her phone and texted her sister for help. But her bloody fingers slipped. She hit the wrong number. That message didn't reach her sister. It reached Marcus Hayes, a 42-year-old black single father working the night shift as a hospital janitor. A man who had every reason to ignore a stranger's cry for help. A man who knew exactly what would happen if a black man showed up to save a white woman from a cop. He texted back 4 words that changed everything. I'm on my way. What happens when a desperate woman accidentally summons the one man brave enough, or foolish enough, to answer? The answer will break your heart and restore your faith in humanity. This is the story of He Broke My Ribs. Drop a comment below telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss what happens next. Marcus Hayes was mopping the 3rd-floor corridor of Chicago General Hospital when his phone buzzed. He almost ignored it. At 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, nothing good ever came through that phone. Bill collectors didn't sleep. His daughter's school only called during emergencies, and nobody else had his number, not anymore. He leaned the mop against the wall and pulled out the cracked smartphone. The screen showed a text from an unknown number. He opened it. He broke my ribs. I can't breathe. He locked me in. Please help. 224 Oak Street, apartment 4B. The code is 8890. Marcus stared at the words. His first thought was that it was a scam. Some new trick to steal his information. He'd seen those stories on the news. But something about the message made his thumb hover over the screen. The words weren't polished. They were desperate, raw. The kind of words you type when you're not thinking about grammar or punctuation. The kind of words you type when you're dying. He typed back, "Who is this?" The 3 dots appeared immediately. Whoever was on the other end was waiting, hoping. "It's me. Please. I think my lung is punctured. He's coming back." Marcus's heart began to pound. He looked around the empty corridor. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Somewhere down the hall, a machine beeped rhythmically. This wasn't a scam. He typed, "I think you have the wrong number." The response came instantly. "Liam, please. I'm so scared. He said he would kill me this time. I believe him. Please, please, please." Marcus closed his eyes. His mind went to a place he'd tried to bury for 6 years. A phone call at 2 a.m. His wife's best friend, crying, asking for help. He'd told her to call the police. The police will handle it, he'd said. That's their job. 3 weeks later, she was dead. Her husband had beaten her to death with a baseball bat, while their kids slept in the next room. The cops had been called to that house 11 times. 11 times they'd done nothing. Marcus had carried that guilt like a stone in his chest ever since. He looked at the phone again, at the address. 224 Oak Street. That was across town. 30 minutes in good traffic. Maybe 20 if he pushed it. He should call 911. That was the right thing to do. Let the professionals handle it. But the address nagged at him. Oak Street. That was in the 14th district. He knew that precinct. Everyone in the South Side knew that precinct. Those cops protected their own. If the man who broke this woman's ribs was a cop, or friends with cops, calling 911 might just get her killed faster. His thumb hovered over the screen. "Don't do this," a voice in his head warned. "You have a daughter. You have responsibilities. You can't afford to be a hero." But another voice, older and wiser, spoke louder. "You can't afford not to be." He typed 4 words. "I'm on my way." Then he grabbed his jacket and ran. The employee parking lot was nearly empty. Marcus's 2009 Honda Civic sat under a broken streetlight, looking tired and old. Just like him. He climbed in and turned the key. The engine coughed twice before catching. He pulled out of the lot and headed north, his mind racing faster than the car. "What are you doing?" he asked himself. "What the hell are you doing?" He didn't have an answer. All he had was an address and a feeling in his gut that if he didn't go, someone was going to die tonight. His phone buzzed again. "Are you coming? Please tell me you're coming." He picked up the phone at a red light. "I'm coming. Stay hidden. Don't make noise." "He has a gun. He's a cop. Please be careful." Marcus felt his blood turn cold. A cop. Of course it was a cop. He thought about turning around. Every survival instinct he'd developed in 42 years of being a black man in America screamed at him to turn around. A black man showing up at a white cop's apartment in the middle of the night to rescue his girlfriend? That was a death sentence. That was a news story waiting to happen. That was his daughter growing up without a father. But he kept driving, because somewhere in that apartment, a woman was bleeding. A woman who had reached out to a stranger because she had no one else. A woman who believed she was going to die. He couldn't live with another ghost. 224 Oak Street was a 4-story brick building in a decent neighborhood. The kind of place where people minded their own business and didn't ask questions. Marcus parked across the street and killed the engine. He sat in the darkness, watching the building. 4th floor, apartment 4B. The lights were off. He checked his phone. No new messages. That scared him more than anything. He got out of the car and opened the trunk. Inside was the emergency kit he kept for breakdowns. Jumper cables, a flashlight, a first aid kit, and a tire iron. He grabbed the tire iron. It wasn't much. Against a cop with a gun, it was almost nothing. But it was something. He crossed the street and approached the building. The front door had a keypad. She had given him the code, 8890. He punched it in. The door clicked open. The lobby was empty. A single elevator waited at the far end. Marcus ignored it and took the stairs. Elevators made noise. Elevators trapped you. He climbed quickly, his heart hammering against his ribs. By the time he reached the 4th floor, he was breathing hard. Not from exertion, from fear. The hallway was quiet. Apartment 4B was at the end, near the fire escape. Marcus approached slowly. He pressed his ear to the door. Silence. He tried the handle. Locked. He pulled out his phone and texted, "I'm outside. Can you get to the door?" A minute passed. Then 2. Then his phone buzzed. Bathroom. He broke the bedroom lock. Can't reach front door. Marcus looked at the door. It was solid wood with a deadbolt. He couldn't kick it in. Not quietly, anyway. He moved to the fire escape window at the end of the hall. It was unlocked. He climbed out onto the metal grating and looked up. A window on the 4th floor was slightly open. The bathroom window. He climbed. The fire escape groaned under his weight, each step sending a metallic screech into the night. He winced with every sound, expecting lights to flip on, expecting someone to start shouting. Nothing happened. He reached the window and peered inside. The bathroom was small, lit only by the glow of a phone screen on the floor. In the corner, wedged between the toilet and the vanity, was a woman. She looked up at him, with eyes full of terror. "Evelyn?" he whispered. Who are you?" "Marcus. I'm the wrong number." He pushed the window open wider. "Can you stand?" I don't think so. My ribs." She broke into a coughing fit, and even in the darkness, he could see the pain contort her face. Marcus climbed through the window. He landed softly on the tile floor and crouched beside her. Up close, he could see the damage, bruises blooming on her jaw, blood on her lip. The way she held her left side, protecting something broken inside. "I'm going to get you out of here," he said quietly. "But I need you to trust me." "He's going to come back," she whispered. "He said he was going to the precinct, but he could come back any minute. He has friends. They all cover for each other."
"I know." Marcus slid his arm under her shoulders. "On 3, we stand. Ready?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. 1, 2, 3. He lifted her. She cried out, the sound muffled against his shoulder. He held her weight easily. Years of mopping floors and lifting equipment had made him stronger than he looked. "The window," he said. "We go out the way I came in." "I can't climb."
"You don't have to." They reached the ground floor. Marcus carried her toward his car, moving as fast as he dared. "Just a little further," he said. "My car is right." Headlights washed over them. A car screeched around the corner, a police cruiser. Marcus froze. The cruiser slammed to a stop. The door flew open. A man stepped out, his hand already on his service weapon. "Put her down." The voice was calm, controlled, and dripping with authority. "Put her down, right now." Evelyn's grip tightened on Marcus's neck. "It's him," she whimpered. "It's Ryan." Marcus looked at the man approaching them. Detective Ryan Thorne was tall, broad-shouldered, and white. He moved with the confidence of a man who had never faced consequences for anything in his life. "I said put her down." Ryan drew his weapon. "On the ground. Now." Marcus's mind raced. He was standing in the open, holding a white woman, facing a white cop with a gun. Every headline he'd ever read flashed through his mind. Every name he'd memorized. Every life lost to this exact situation. He should put her down. He should get on the ground. He should comply and hope to survive. But he looked at Evelyn's face, the fear, the desperation, the fading hope, and he knew. If he put her down, she would die. Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. Ryan would make sure of it. And the system would look the other way, just like it always did. "She needs a hospital," Marcus said. His voice was steady, even though his hands were shaking. "Her ribs are broken. Her lung might be collapsing." "She's my fiancée," Ryan snapped, moving closer. "She's mentally unstable. She had an episode. I'm taking her back inside." "Please," Evelyn whispered. "Please don't let him take me." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "Who the hell are you? You her new boyfriend? That what this is? She called her side piece to come get her?" "I'm nobody," Marcus said. "Wrong number. She texted me by accident." Ryan laughed, a cold, ugly sound. "Wrong number. That's good. That's really good. You know what I see? I see a black male attempting to kidnap a white female. I see a justifiable shooting waiting to happen." He raised his weapon. "Last chance. Put her down." Marcus made a decision. He turned and ran. The first shot missed by inches. Marcus felt the air displaced by the bullet as it whipped past his ear. He ducked behind a parked car, still holding Evelyn. "Marcus," she gasped. "Stay down." He scrambled along the row of parked cars, keeping low. Another shot rang out, shattering a side mirror. "You're a dead man!" Ryan screamed. "You hear me? You're dead!"
Marcus reached his Civic. He yanked the door open and shoved Evelyn into the passenger seat as gently as he could. She screamed in pain. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." He sprinted around to the driver's side. Ryan was running toward them now, his weapon raised. Marcus dove into the car and turned the key. The engine coughed. "Come on," he begged. "Come on, come on!" The engine caught. He slammed the car into drive and floored it. The tires screamed. The Civic lurched forward. A bullet punched through the rear window, showering them with glass. Evelyn screamed. Marcus didn't slow down. He took the first corner at 40 miles an hour, the car fishtailing wildly. He took the next corner, then the next, putting as much distance between them and Ryan as possible. After 5 minutes of evasive driving, he finally allowed himself to breathe. "Are you hit?" he asked. "Evelyn, are you hit?" "No," she gasped. "No, I don't think so." He looked at her. She was pressed against the passenger door, her arms wrapped around herself, her whole body shaking. "We need to get you to a hospital." "No!" The word came out sharp. "No hospitals. He has friends at every ER in the city. They'll call him. They always call him." Marcus gripped the steering wheel. She was right. He knew she was right. The system was designed to protect men like Ryan. "I know someone," he said finally. "Someone who can help." "Who?" He looked at her, this woman he'd never met before tonight. This stranger who had accidentally pulled him into her nightmare. "My mother," he said. "She's a retired nurse, and she's the only person in this city I trust completely." Evelyn stared at him. "Why are you doing this? You don't know me. You could have gotten killed back there. You could still get killed." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. 6 years ago, he said finally, my wife's best friend called me in the middle of the night. Her husband was beating her. She begged me to come, but I told her to call the police. I told her to let the system handle it. He paused. His jaw tightened. 3 weeks later, he killed her. Beat her to death while their kids slept in the next room. The cops had been to that house 11 times. 11 times, and they did nothing. He glanced at Evelyn. "When your text came through tonight, I thought about ignoring it. I thought about calling 911. I thought about doing the safe thing, the smart thing." He shook his head. "But I couldn't live with another ghost." Evelyn reached out and touched his arm. Her hand was trembling. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for not ignoring me." Marcus didn't respond. He just kept driving, heading toward the south side, toward his mother's house, toward a shelter that no cop would think to look. Behind them, somewhere in the night, Ryan Thorne was already making phone calls. The hunt had just begun. Louise Hayes had seen a lot in her 71 years. She'd marched in Selma. She'd buried a husband. She'd raised a son alone in a neighborhood where survival was never guaranteed. She'd worked 35 years as a trauma nurse at Cook County Hospital, seen more broken bodies than she could count, but she'd never seen her son carry a bleeding white woman through her front door at 1 in the morning. Marcus Jerome Hayes. She stood in the hallway in her nightgown, her reading glasses perched on her nose. "You better start talking right now." "Mama, I need your help." "I can see that." Louise looked at the woman in his arms, young, maybe late 20s, pale, shaking, clutching her side like something was broken inside. "Bring her to the spare room, now." Marcus carried Evelyn down the hall. The spare room was small but clean, with a single bed and a nightstand. He laid her down as gently as he could. "Her ribs," he said. "At least 2, maybe 3. She says she can't breathe right. Might be a collapsed lung." Louise was already moving, pulling supplies from the closet. A blood pressure cuff, a stethoscope, gauze,
Tape. Her movements were quick and efficient, muscle memory from decades of emergencies. Who did this to her? Her fiancé, a cop named Ryan Thorne. Louise paused. She looked at her son, then at the woman on the bed. Lord have mercy. She shook her head. You know what you've done, don't you? You know what happens when a black man takes a white woman from a white cop. I know, Mama. They will hunt you. They will find you. And they will kill you. I know. Louise stared at him for a long moment. Then she sighed and turned back to her patient. Go check on Maya. Make sure she's still asleep. Then put on some coffee. It's going to be a long night. Marcus nodded. He took one last look at Evelyn. Her eyes were closed now, her breathing shallow but steady, and left the room. In the kitchen, he made coffee with shaking hands. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a bone-deep exhaustion and a fear he couldn't shake. What have you done? The voice in his head demanded. What the hell have you done? He'd broken into an apartment. He'd fled from a police officer. He'd taken a woman across the city and hidden her in his mother's house. In the eyes of the law, he was a kidnapper, a criminal, a threat. It didn't matter that he'd saved her life. It didn't matter that Ryan was the real monster. The system didn't care about truth. The system cared about power. And Ryan had all the power. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out, expecting another message from Evelyn's phone. Maybe Ryan had found it, was tracking him through it. But it wasn't Evelyn's number. It was a Chicago Police Department alert, the kind that went out to the whole city. Amber Alert, Evelyn Marie Carter, 28, white female. Last seen in the company of a black male, 40s, driving a dark-colored Honda Civic. Suspect is considered armed and dangerous. Do not approach. Call 911 immediately. Marcus stared at the screen. Armed and dangerous. They hadn't even waited an hour. Ryan had already spun the story. Marcus wasn't a hero. He was a villain. A kidnapper. A threat to public safety. His face would be on the news by morning. His name would be in every database. His life, everything he built, everything he'd sacrificed, gone. He thought about Maya, asleep in her room. 8 years old. The center of his universe. The reason he worked double shifts and skipped meals and never complained. What was going to happen to her when they came for him? He heard footsteps behind him. Louise entered the kitchen. Her face was grim. She stabilized, Louise said. 3 fractured ribs, but I don't think the lung is fully collapsed. More like bruised. She needs rest and monitoring. If she gets worse, she needs a hospital, no matter what. Did you see the alert? Louise nodded. I saw it. They're going to come here, Mama. They're going to find us. Probably. Louise poured herself a cup of coffee. Her hands, unlike his, were perfectly steady. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I don't know. Well, you better figure it out. Louise sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where Marcus had eaten breakfast every morning as a child. Because that girl in there, she trusted you with her life. She reached out to a stranger in the darkest moment of her existence, and you answered. You don't get to give up now. I'm not giving up. I'm just... He ran his hands over his face. I'm scared, Mama. I'm scared of what's going to happen to Maya. I'm scared of what they're going to do to me. Good. Louise took a sip of her coffee. Fear keeps you sharp. Fear keeps you alive. But fear don't make decisions. You make decisions. So decide. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I need to document everything, he said finally. Her injuries, her testimony, a recording of what really happened, something that can't be buried or ignored. That's a start. And I need to keep her hidden, just until she's strong enough to tell her own story. If she can go public, really public, where Ryan can't control the narrative, maybe we have a chance." Louise studied her son. A small smile crossed her face. "There's the boy I raised. There's the man your father would be proud of." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. He blinked them away. "What if it's not enough?" Louise reached across the table and took his hand. Her grip was strong, warm, unyielding. "Then at least you'll know you tried. At least you'll know you did the right thing when it mattered. That's all any of us can do, baby. That's all any of us can do." The coffee grew cold. Outside, the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky. And somewhere across the city, Detective Ryan Thorne was loading his service weapon, preparing for war. Evelyn woke to the smell of bacon and the sound of a child's laughter. For one disoriented moment, she thought she was dreaming. She hadn't woken to laughter in 2 years. She'd woken to silence, to tension, to the weight of Ryan's arm pinning her to the bed like a prisoner. She opened her eyes. The ceiling above her was unfamiliar, white plaster with a small crack running toward the window. Sunlight filtered through thin curtains. She was lying in a narrow bed covered with a quilt that smelled like lavender and age. She tried to sit up. Pain lanced through her left side, sharp and immediate. She gasped, falling back against the pillow. "Easy now." An older black woman appeared in the doorway. She was small, maybe 5'2", with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun and eyes that seemed to see everything. "You're Louise," Evelyn said. Her voice came out as a croak. "And you're the woman my son risked his life for." Louise walked to the bedside and pressed her fingers against Evelyn's wrist, checking her pulse. "How's the pain? Scale of 1 to 10. 7, maybe 8? That's the fractured ribs. 3 of them." Louise released her wrist and picked up a glass of water from the nightstand. "Small sips. You're dehydrated." Evelyn drank. The water was cool and tasted faintly of minerals. "Where's Marcus?" "Sleeping. First time in 36 hours. Louise pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. "That man drove all over Chicago last night, making sure nobody followed him here. Then he stayed up recording your injuries, documenting everything on video. He's building a case." "A case?" "Evidence. Proof of what that man did to you." Louise's eyes hardened. "Because right now, the whole city thinks my son kidnapped you. There's an Amber Alert with his name on it. They're calling him armed and dangerous." Evelyn felt her stomach drop. No, that's not. I have to tell them. I have to explain. And how do you plan to do that? Walk into a police station? Call 911? Louise shook her head. "Baby, the man who broke your ribs is a detective. He's got friends in every precinct. The moment you surface, they'll hand you right back to him. Then what do I do? For now, you heal. You get strong." Louise stood up. "And when you're ready, we figure out how to tell your story in a way that can't be silenced." She walked toward the door, then paused. "There's a little girl in this house. My granddaughter, Maya. She's 8 years old. She doesn't know what's happening, and I intend to keep it that way. So whatever you're feeling, fear, panic, anger, you keep it contained around her. Understood?" Evelyn nodded. Louise left. Evelyn lay in the bed, staring at the crack in the ceiling. Her mind raced through the events of the previous night. The bathroom floor, the text message, the stranger who climbed through her window. She had trusted a man she'd never met, a man who had every reason to walk away, a man who is now being hunted because of her. Guilt settled over her like a heavy blanket. The door creaked open. A small face peered around the frame. Round cheeks, curious brown eyes, hair done up in 2 puffs tied with pink ribbons. "Hi," the little girl said. "Are you the lady my daddy saved?" Evelyn managed a weak smile. "I guess I am." "I'm Maya." She stepped into the room, clutching a stuffed elephant to her chest. "Grandma says you got hurt really bad. Does it hurt?" "A little. When I broke my arm last year, Daddy let me have ice cream for breakfast." Maya tilted her head. "Do you want ice cream? I can ask Grandma." Despite everything, Evelyn felt a warmth spread through her chest. "That's very sweet, but I think I'm okay for now." Maya nodded solemnly. "Daddy says you're going to stay with us for a while, like a sleepover." "Something like that." "Good. I never have sleepovers. Daddy says our apartment is too small, and Grandma says I talk too much." Maya grinned. "I do talk a lot. My teacher says I could talk the ears off a mule." "What's a mule?"
Maya. Marcus appeared in the doorway. He looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes, his clothes wrinkled, his face heavy with worry. But when he looked at his daughter, something in his expression softened. "Let her rest, baby girl. She's still healing."
"But Daddy, she doesn't have anyone to talk to."
"She'll have plenty of time to talk later. Go help Grandma with breakfast." Maya sighed dramatically, the sigh of an 8-year-old who felt gravely misunderstood. But she obeyed, slipping past her father and disappearing down the hall. Marcus stepped into the room. He stood awkwardly near the door, as if unsure whether he had permission to come closer. "How are you feeling?" "I'm alive," Evelyn said. "Because of you." "You're alive because you fought. You texted for help. You didn't give up." He moved to the chair his mother had vacated and sat down. "I just showed up." "You climbed a fire escape in the middle of the night to rescue a stranger."
"You carried me down 4 floors. You got shot at."
Evelyn shook her head.
"That's not just showing up. That's—"
She trailed off. She didn't have words for what it was. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "I recorded your injuries last night, while you were unconscious. Photos, video, everything. I also recorded myself explaining what happened. The text, the address, the confrontation with Ryan. It's time-stamped. If something happens to me, at least there's a record." "If something happens to you?" He met her eyes. "I'm a black man who allegedly kidnapped a white woman from a white cop. You know how this story usually ends." Evelyn felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm so sorry. I never meant... I didn't know." "I know." His voice was gentle. "You were dying. You reached out to the only number you could think of. You didn't ask for this, and neither did I. But here we are."
"Here we are,"
she repeated. Marcus leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I need to ask you some questions. About Ryan. About what he's done. Not just last night. Everything. Can you do that?" Evelyn closed her eyes. The memories rose up like bile. 2 years of terror compressed into a highlight reel of horror.
"Yes,"
she whispered.
"I can do that."
Marcus hit record on his phone. "Take your time. Start from the beginning." And she did. She told him about meeting Ryan at a charity event 3 years ago. How charming he'd been. How attentive. How he'd made her feel like the center of the universe. She told him about the first time he hit her, 6 months into the relationship, after she'd talked to a male colleague at a party. He'd apologized afterward, brought her flowers, promised it would never happen again. She told him about the isolation, how he'd convinced her to move in with him, then gradually cut her off from friends and family. How he monitored her phone, her email, her location. How he'd made her quit her job at the hospital because he didn't like the male doctors looking at her. She told him about the escalation, the choking, the threats, the nights she'd spent locked in closets because she'd disrespected him, the time he'd held his service weapon to her head and asked if she wanted to die. She told him about the night he broke her ribs, how she'd tried to leave, how he'd caught her at the door, how he'd kicked her until she couldn't breathe, then stepped over her body like she was garbage. By the time she finished, her face was wet with tears, and Marcus's jaw was clenched so tight she could see the muscles working. He stopped the recording. "I believe you," he said quietly. "Every word." "Most people don't." Evelyn wiped her eyes. "Ryan is good at being liked. He's good at making me look crazy. Even my own sister stopped calling because he convinced her I was having mental health issues." "Your sister? That's who you were trying to text?" "Liam, my brother." Evelyn shook her head. "I typed the wrong number. My hands were shaking so bad." "Does Liam know what's been happening?" "He suspected. He's the only one who never bought Ryan's act. But Ryan has his phone tapped. If I call him, Ryan will know exactly where I am." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then we don't call him. Not yet. But when you're ready to go public, he could be an ally." "Go public?" "It's the only way." Marcus stood up and walked to the window, peering through the curtains at the street below. "Ryan controls the narrative right now. He's got the police, the media, everything. The only way to beat him is to take the story out of his hands. Go directly to the public. Social media, news outlets, journalists who aren't in his pocket." "And if no one believes me?" "Then we make them believe. We show them the evidence, the photos, the video." He turned to face her. "Your testimony." Evelyn stared at him. This man, this stranger, had thought through more in one night than she had in 2 years of survival mode. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Really? You have a daughter, a mother, a life. Why risk all of that for someone you don't even know?" Marcus was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy. "I told you about my wife's friend, the one who called me for help?" "The one who died." "Her name was Denise. She had 2 kids, a boy and a girl. After she died, their father got custody. He moved them to Indiana. I tried to check on them, but he got a restraining order, said I was harassing his family." Marcus's hands curled into fists. "Those kids are teenagers now. I don't know if they're okay. I don't know if they're alive. And I'll never know, because I made the wrong choice when it mattered." He looked at Evelyn. "I've spent 6 years trying to make up for that phone call. 6 years of donating to shelters, volunteering at hotlines, doing everything I could to feel less guilty. None of it worked. Because the guilt isn't about doing good deeds. It's about the moment you're tested, the moment someone needs you, the moment you have to choose between safety and doing what's right." He sat back down in the chair. "Last night, I got tested again. And this time, I wasn't going to fail." Evelyn reached out and took his hand. His skin was rough, calloused from years of labor, but his grip was gentle. "You didn't fail," she said. "You saved my life." "Then let me finish saving it." He squeezed her hand. "Let me help you destroy him." Before Evelyn could respond, Louise's voice echoed from the kitchen. "Marcus, get in here, now!" The tone made Evelyn's blood run cold. Marcus was on his feet instantly, moving toward the door. "Stay here," he said. "Don't get up." He disappeared down the hall. Evelyn heard voices, urgent, tense, but couldn't make out the words. She tried to sit up, gritting her teeth against the pain. Marcus returned a minute later. His face was ashen. "What is it?" "The news." He held up his phone. "They're doing a press conference. Ryan is about to go on camera." He tapped the screen. A video began to play, a live feed from a local news station.
Ryan Thorne stood at a podium bristling with microphones. He was wearing his dress uniform, his badge gleaming under the lights. His hands were bandaged, from the fire escape, Evelyn realized, from chasing them. But what struck her most was his face. He looked devastated. Eyes red-rimmed, voice trembling. "I just want Evelyn to come home," Ryan said, his voice breaking. "She's sick. She's not thinking clearly. And the man who took her, he's dangerous. He has a history of violence. I'm begging anyone who sees them to call the police immediately." A reporter shouted a question. "Detective Thorne, can you tell us about the suspect?" "His name is Marcus Hayes. He's a 42-year-old male with connections to gang activity on the South Side. We believe he may have been stalking Evelyn for some time. She mentioned a few weeks ago that she felt like someone was watching her. I should have taken it more seriously. I should have protected her." Ryan wiped his eyes. "Evelyn, if you're watching this, I love you. I'm not angry. I just want you safe. Please, come back to me." The video ended. Evelyn felt like she was going to be sick. "Gang activity?" Marcus's voice was flat. "I've never been in a gang in my life. I've never been arrested. I've never even gotten a parking ticket." "He's lying." Evelyn's hands were shaking. "He's lying about everything." "Of course he is. And right now, every person in Chicago believes him." Marcus shoved the phone in his pocket. "We need to move faster. The longer this goes on, the more the story solidifies. By tomorrow, I'll be a monster, and he'll be a victim." "So what do? We find someone who'll listen, a journalist, a lawyer, someone with the platform to tell the truth." He paused, thinking. "My mother knows someone, a civil rights attorney named Patricia Wells. She took on the city after the Laquan McDonald case. If anyone would believe us, it's her." "Can you trust her?" "I don't know, but we're running out of options." There was a knock at the front door. Everyone froze. Louise's voice came from the hallway, low and urgent. "Marcus, get Maya, now!" Marcus moved. Evelyn heard him in the next room, speaking softly to his daughter. His voice calm despite the fear she knew he must be feeling. She heard the front door open. "Can I help you?" Louise's voice, steady, controlled. "Ma'am, we're looking for a Marcus Hayes. We have reason to believe he may be in the area." A male voice, professional. "Cop. Marcus Hayes is my son. He doesn't live here." "Do you know where he is?" "I haven't seen him in 3 weeks. We had a disagreement about money. You know how family is." A pause. Evelyn held her breath. "Mind if we come inside, just to take a look around?" "Do you have a warrant?" Another pause, longer this time. "No, ma'am, we don't." "Then I do mind." Louise's voice hardened. "I know my rights, officer. I've known them since before you were born. You want to search my house, you come back with a warrant. Until then, you have a nice day." The door closed. Evelyn heard footsteps, heavy boots on the porch, then silence. A minute later, Louise appeared in the doorway. Her face was calm, but Evelyn could see the tension in her shoulders. "They're gone, for now." She looked at Evelyn. "But they'll be back, and next time, they'll have a warrant." "How long do we have?" "A few hours, maybe less." Louise turned to Marcus, who had appeared behind her with Maya clinging to his leg. "You need to go. Take her and go." "Mama." "Don't argue with me." Louise's voice cracked, the first sign of vulnerability Evelyn had seen from her. "I didn't raise you for 42 years to watch you get shot on my front porch. You take that girl and you run. I'll hold them off as long as I can." Grandma? Maya's voice was small, frightened. What's happening? Why are the police here? Marcus knelt down to his daughter's level. He took her face in his hands. Baby girl, I need you to listen to me very carefully. We're going to play a game, okay? Like hide and seek. We're going to go somewhere safe, and you have to be very quiet and very brave. Can you do that for me? Maya nodded, her eyes wide. That's my girl. He kissed her forehead. Go pack your elephant and one toy. Quick as you can. Maya ran off. Marcus stood and faced his mother. I can't let you do this.
You don't have a choice. Louise reached up and touched his face. I've been fighting this fight since before you were born. A few cops don't scare me. What scares me is losing you. So you go. You survive. You make this right. Marcus pulled her into a hug. Evelyn saw his shoulders shake. I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby. Now go. 5 minutes later, Evelyn was in the back seat of the Civic, lying down to stay out of sight. Maya sat in the front, clutching her stuffed elephant, her face pale with confusion. Marcus drove, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors. They pulled out of the driveway, just as 2 more squad cars turned onto the street. Marcus took a side road, then another, weaving through the neighborhood he'd known his entire life. He knew every shortcut, every alley, every hiding spot. They slipped away into the city, leaving Louise standing alone on her porch, watching the police cars descend. Evelyn closed her eyes. The hunt was still on. And now, it wasn't just her life at stake. It was all of them. The Civic rolled through streets Evelyn didn't recognize. Row houses gave way to warehouses to empty lots choked with weeds. The city seemed to dissolve around them, becoming something raw and forgotten. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere safe, somewhere they won't think to look. Daddy? Maya's voice was trembling. I'm scared. Marcus reached over and squeezed her hand. I know, baby. I'm scared too. But remember what I always tell you? Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. That's right. Being brave means you do the right thing even when you're scared. And right now, we're doing the right thing. We're helping someone who needs us. Maya turned around in her seat, looking at Evelyn. The bad man hurt you? Evelyn nodded. Yes, he did. But Daddy's going to fix it. Maya said it like a statement of fact, like the sun rising in the morning. Daddy fixes everything. Evelyn looked at Marcus, at the tension in his shoulders, the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of impossible choices pressing down on him. Yes, she said softly. I think he does. They drove in silence for another 20 minutes. Finally, Marcus pulled into the parking lot of an abandoned church. The building was old, its windows boarded up, its steeple tilting slightly to one side. But the door opened when Marcus pushed it, and the interior was dry and clean. I used to come here as a kid, Marcus said, helping Evelyn out of the car. Before they closed it down. There's a basement where the choir used to practice. Nobody knows about it except the old congregation, and most of them are gone now. He led them inside. The church smelled of dust and old wood, and something faintly sweet. Incense, maybe, or candle wax. Pews were stacked against the walls. A faded mural of Jesus looked down from above the altar. Maya stared around with wide eyes. Is this where God lives? God lives everywhere, baby girl. But yeah, this is one of his houses. They descended a narrow staircase into the basement. It was larger than Evelyn expected. A rectangular room with folding chairs stacked in one corner and a small stage at the far end. Marcus pulled out some old blankets from a closet and spread them on the floor. It's not much, he said. But it's safe.
It's perfect.
Evelyn lowered herself onto the blankets, wincing at the pain in her ribs.
Thank you.
Marcus nodded. He pulled out his phone, frowning at the screen. No signal down here. That's good and bad. Good because they can't track us. Bad because I can't reach anyone.
The lawyer? Patricia Wells?
I'll have to go up to make the call. But first, he looked at Maya, who was exploring the room with cautious curiosity. First, I need to make sure you're both settled.
Marcus?
Evelyn caught his arm.
Your mother.
What if they... My mother has been getting arrested at protests since 1965. She knows how to handle cops. But his voice wavered slightly. She'll be okay. She has to be. He sat down on a folding chair, suddenly looking every one of his 42 years. Evelyn watched him watch his daughter, and she understood something she hadn't fully grasped before. This man had given up everything for her. His job, his home, his safety, his mother's freedom. All for a stranger who'd texted the wrong number. I'm going to make this right, she said. I promise, whatever it takes. Marcus looked at her. In his eyes, she saw exhaustion and fear and something else. Something that might have been hope. I believe you, he said. And in that moment, despite everything, she believed herself, too. The basement of the abandoned church became their world for the next 48 hours. Marcus made trips upstairs every few hours to check his phone, each time returning with news that made Evelyn's stomach sink deeper. They searched my mother's house, he said on the second morning. Turned it upside down. She's at the precinct now, being questioned.
Oh, God.
Evelyn pressed her hands to her face.
Marcus, I'm so sorry.
She's not talking. She won't talk. But his voice was hollow. They can only hold her for so long without charging her. The problem is, Ryan's pushing for obstruction charges, harboring a fugitive.
A fugitive?
Evelyn laughed bitterly. I'm a victim, and they're calling me a fugitive. That's how he's spinning it. The story's everywhere now. National news picked it up this morning. They're calling it a kidnapping. They're calling me a predator. Maya looked up from the coloring book Marcus had found in the closet upstairs.
Daddy, what's a predator?
Marcus knelt beside his daughter. It's a word people use when they're confused about someone. Sometimes people say things that aren't true because they don't know the whole story. Like when Tommy said I cheated on the spelling test, but I didn't. Exactly like that. But Mrs. Patterson found out the truth, and Tommy had to apologize. Marcus smoothed his daughter's hair. That's right, baby. The truth always comes out. We just have to be patient. Evelyn watched this exchange with a tightness in her chest. This child, this innocent little girl, had been pulled into a nightmare because her father had answered a stranger's cry for help. If Ryan found them, Maya would watch her father get arrested. Or worse.
Marcus,
Evelyn said quietly.
Maybe you should take Maya somewhere safe. Leave me here. I can...
No.
But your daughter...
My daughter is watching me right now. Marcus stood up and faced Evelyn. She's watching whether he abandons people who need him. He shook his head. I'm not teaching her that lesson. Not today. Not ever.
I'm not worth your family.
That's not your decision to make. His voice was firm, but not unkind. You didn't ask for this. Neither did I. But we're in it together now. All of us. Maya tugged on her father's sleeve.
Daddy, I'm hungry.
Marcus checked his watch. I know, baby. I'm going to go get us some food, okay? You stay here with Miss Evelyn. Can you do that? Maya nodded solemnly.
I'll protect her.
Marcus kissed the top of her head. That's my brave girl. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the stairs. At the bottom, he paused and looked back at Evelyn. "I'm going to try to reach Patricia Wells, the lawyer. If I can get her to listen, maybe we have a chance."
"And if you can't?"
"Then we figure out something else." He almost smiled. "I've been figuring things out my whole life. I'm not stopping now." He disappeared up the stairs. The basement door closed with a soft click. Maya scooted closer to Evelyn on the blankets.
"Miss Evelyn?" "Yes, sweetie?" "Are you my daddy's girlfriend?"
Evelyn felt heat rise to her cheeks.
"No, honey. I'm just someone your daddy is helping." "Oh."
Maya was quiet for a moment.
"My daddy doesn't have a girlfriend. Grandma says he's too busy being a good daddy to be a good boyfriend. But I think he'd be a good boyfriend, too. He makes really good pancakes."
Despite everything, Evelyn laughed. The movement sent pain shooting through her ribs, but she didn't care. It felt good to laugh. She couldn't remember the last time she had.
"Pancakes are very important," she agreed. "The most important," Maya confirmed. "When you feel better, Daddy can make you pancakes. Then you'll see."
Evelyn reached out and took Maya's small hand in hers.
"I'd like that."
They sat in comfortable silence. Maya returned to her coloring book, her tongue poking out slightly as she concentrated. Evelyn watched her, thinking about the life she'd imagined for herself before Ryan. A husband, children, a home filled with laughter and love. Ryan had stolen that future from her. He'd convinced her she was worthless, unlovable, lucky to have him despite his cruelty. She'd believed him because he'd isolated her so completely that his voice was the only one she heard. But now she was hearing other voices. Louise, fierce and protective. Maya, innocent and hopeful. And Marcus, steady and certain, risking everything for a principle. She wasn't worthless. She never had been. It had taken a stranger to remind her of that. The basement door opened. Evelyn tensed, but it was Marcus, carrying a plastic bag. "Got sandwiches and juice boxes?" He descended the stairs. "Also got through to Patricia Wells." Evelyn sat up straighter. "And?" "She'll meet with us, tonight. She has an office downtown, but she's willing to come to us." I gave her a location, a parking garage about 10 blocks from here. Neutral ground. Can we trust her? She spent her career going after dirty cops. If anyone's going to believe us, it's her. Marcus handed Maya a sandwich. "But she wants to see your injuries. She wants to hear your story directly. Are you up for that?" Evelyn thought about what it would mean. Telling her story again. Reliving every moment of horror. Exposing herself to a stranger who might not believe her. But she thought about Maya, too. About Louise sitting in a police interrogation room. About Marcus's face on every news channel in America, labeled a predator. "Yes," she said. "I'm up for it." The hours crawled by. Marcus paced. Evelyn tried to rest but couldn't stop her mind from racing. Maya eventually fell asleep on the blankets, her stuffed elephant clutched to her chest. As evening approached, Marcus's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his face went gray. "What is it?" He showed her the screen. A news alert. Breaking. Mother of kidnapping suspect arrested. Louise Hayes, 71, charged with obstruction of justice and harboring a fugitive. Evelyn watched Marcus's hands begin to shake. The phone trembled in his grip. "They arrested her." His voice was barely a whisper. "They arrested my 71-year-old mother." "Marcus, she marched in Selma." His voice cracked. "She survived Jim Crow. She raised me alone after my father died. She's never broken a law in her life. And now she's in a cell because of me."
Because of me, Evelyn corrected. This is my fault. All of this. Marcus shook his head. No, this is Ryan's fault. Ryan and every cop who covers for him. Ryan and every system that protects men like him while criminalizing everyone else. He looked at his sleeping daughter. Something hardened in his eyes. We're ending this tonight. Patricia Wells is going to hear your story, and she's going to help us go public. By tomorrow morning, the whole world is going to know what Ryan Thorne really is. And if it doesn't work, it has to work. Marcus's jaw tightened. Because if it doesn't, I lose everything. My mother, my freedom, my daughter. He looked at Evelyn. I can't let that happen. At 9 o'clock, they moved. Marcus carried Maya, who was still groggy from sleep. Evelyn walked beside him, each step sending jolts of pain through her ribs. They made their way through back alleys and side streets, avoiding main roads and security cameras. The parking garage was a gray concrete structure on the edge of downtown. 5 stories tall, mostly empty at this hour. Marcus had chosen the 3rd level, high enough to have multiple escape routes, low enough to reach the street quickly. They waited by the stairwell. Marcus kept Maya close, one eye on the entrance ramp. At 9:17, headlights appeared. A silver sedan climbed the ramp and parked 20 feet away. The engine cut off. A woman stepped out. Patricia Wells was in her 60s, with steel gray hair and sharp eyes behind elegant glasses. She wore a tailored suit despite the hour. She walked toward them with the confident stride of someone who had faced down worse than a parking garage meeting. Mr. Hayes, she extended her hand. I've seen your face on every channel. You're either very brave or very stupid. Probably both, Marcus shook her hand. This is Evelyn Carter. Patricia turned her attention to Evelyn. Her gaze was clinical, assessing. May I see your injuries? Evelyn lifted her shirt to reveal the bandaging around her ribs. Even through the wrapping, the bruising was visible, dark purple and black, spreading across her left side like a storm cloud. Patricia's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Who documented this? I did, Marcus said. Photos, video, timestamps, everything. And the police reports from previous incidents? There are no police reports. Evelyn lowered her shirt. Ryan made sure of that. He's a detective. He knows how to keep things off the record. Hospital visits? None. He has friends in every ER in the city. They would have called him. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Then she looked at Marcus. You understand what you've done? By taking her, by running, you've made yourself a criminal in the eyes of the law. Even if everything you're telling me is true, prosecutors could still charge you with kidnapping, assault on an officer, reckless endangerment. I know. And you did it anyway. She was dying. Marcus's voice was steady. She texted me by accident. She was begging for help. And I knew that if I called 911, they would hand her right back to the man who was killing her. How did you know that? Because I've seen it before. Marcus's jaw tightened. 6 years ago, my wife's best friend was murdered by her husband. She'd called the cops 11 times. 11 times, they did nothing. And when she called me, begging for help, I told her to trust the system. His voice broke slightly. 3 weeks later, she was dead. Patricia studied him for a long moment. Then she turned to Evelyn. I need to hear it from you. Everything. From the beginning. Evelyn took a breath, and she told her story again. The charm, the isolation, the first blow, the escalation, the night Ryan broke her ribs, the desperate text, the wrong number that saved her life. When she finished, Patricia was silent. Maya stirred in Marcus's arms. "Daddy, where are we?" "It's okay, baby. We're just talking to a friend." Patricia looked at the little girl, at her sleepy eyes and her stuffed elephant and her complete trust in her father, and something in her expression shifted. "I have a granddaughter about her age," Patricia said quietly. "She thinks I'm invincible. She doesn't know how many cases I've lost, how many times the system has failed the people I tried to protect." She turned back to Marcus. "But sometimes you win. Sometimes the truth is too loud to ignore. Sometimes one story changes everything." She straightened her shoulders. "I'll take your case, pro bono. But I need you to understand what we're up against. Ryan Thorne has powerful friends. The police union will protect him. The department will close ranks. This is going to get ugly before it gets better." "I don't care about ugly," Marcus said. "I care about my mother sitting in a jail cell. I care about my daughter growing up without a father. I care about Evelyn getting justice." "Then we start tonight." Patricia pulled out her phone. "I have contacts at 3 news stations. We'll release the footage simultaneously. Make it impossible to suppress. By morning, this will be the only story anyone's talking about." She began typing. Marcus watched her, hope and fear warring on his face. Evelyn reached over and touched his arm. "We're going to be okay." "You don't know that." "No, but I believe it." She looked at Maya, sleeping peacefully against her father's shoulder. "I have to believe it." A screech of tires. Everyone froze. Headlights flooded the garage. 3 vehicles, 2 police cruisers and a black SUV, roared up the ramp, blocking the exit. Doors flew open. Officers poured out, weapons drawn. "Down on the ground! Now! Everybody down!" Marcus pulled Maya closer, shielding her with his body. Patricia raised her hands. Evelyn felt her legs go weak. From the SUV, a figure emerged. Ryan Thorne. He walked toward them slowly, deliberately. His face was calm, controlled, the face of a man who had won. "Evelyn." His voice was soft, almost gentle. "I've been looking everywhere for you." "Stay away from me." Her voice came out as a whisper. "I'm not going to hurt you." He smiled. "I just want to take you home, get you the help you need." "She doesn't need your help." Marcus stepped forward, putting himself between Ryan and Evelyn. "She needs you to leave her alone." Ryan's smile vanished. You're the animal who took her." He turned to the officers. "Arrest him. Kidnapping, assault, resisting arrest. Throw the book at him." "Wait," Patricia stepped forward. "I'm this man's attorney. I'm also Ms. Carter's attorney. Any arrest made tonight will be challenged in court tomorrow morning. And I should tell you, Detective Thorne, that I've already sent documented evidence of your abuse to 3 news stations. It goes live in," she checked her phone, 47 minutes. Ryan's face twitched. "What evidence?" "Photographs of Ms. Carter's injuries, video testimony, medical assessment, time-stamped and verified." Patricia's voice was ice cold. "By morning, you won't be able to walk down the street without someone recognizing you. And when Internal Affairs opens their investigation, which they will, every complaint that's ever been filed against you is going to surface. Every victim you've silenced. Every colleague who's looked the other way." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Patricia raised an eyebrow. "Arrest us, detective. Please. It'll be the lead story on every channel. Cop arrests lawyer and witnesses hours before abuse evidence goes public. The optics will be fascinating." Ryan stood very still. Evelyn could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. The rage barely contained beneath the surface. "You think you've won?" he said quietly. You think a few videos are going to bring me down?" "I think the truth has a way of coming out," Patricia replied. "And I think you know that better than anyone." The standoff stretched. Officers looked at each other, uncertain. The silence was suffocating. Then Maya began to cry. It was a soft sound at first, muffled against Marcus's shoulder, but it grew, a child's terror unleashed in the worst possible moment.
"Daddy, I'm scared. I want to go home. I want Grandma."
Marcus held her tighter. "It's okay, baby. It's okay."
"I want to go home."
Ryan looked at the crying child. Something flickered across his face. Not compassion, but opportunity. "This is what you've done," he said to Evelyn. "You've traumatized a child, an innocent little girl, dragged into your delusions." He shook his head. "She'll need therapy for years." "Don't you dare!" Evelyn's voice came out stronger than she expected. "Don't you dare talk about trauma. You're the one who traumatizes people. You're the one who breaks bones and spirits and minds. You're the monster here, Ryan, not him. You." She stepped out from behind Marcus. Her ribs screamed in protest, but she didn't care. "You want me back? You want to take me home?" She laughed bitterly. "There is no home. There never was. There was only a cage. A cage you built around me, piece by piece, until I forgot what freedom felt like." "Evelyn, I'm not finished." She took another step toward him. "You convinced me I was crazy. You convinced me no one would believe me. You convinced me I deserved everything you did to me." Tears streamed down her face. "But I didn't. I never did. And I'm done letting you tell me otherwise." She stood before him now, close enough to touch, close enough to strike. "You can arrest everyone here. You can destroy Marcus's life. You can throw his mother in prison. But you can't silence me anymore. You can't make me disappear. The whole world is going to know what you are, and nothing you do will change that." Ryan's mask cracked. For just a second, she saw the monster underneath, the rage, the hatred, the desperate need for control. Then he lunged. His hands closed around her throat before anyone could react. Evelyn felt the familiar pressure, the familiar panic, the familiar darkness closing in at the edges of her vision. But this time, she wasn't alone. Marcus hit Ryan like a freight train. They went down hard, crashing to the concrete. Officers shouted, rushing forward. Patricia was screaming about assault and witnesses, and Maya, brave, terrified Maya, was screaming at the top of her lungs. "Leave my daddy alone! Leave him alone!" The chaos seemed to last forever. In reality, it was less than a minute. When it was over, Ryan was on the ground in handcuffs. Not Marcus's, but his own. One of the officers, a young woman who'd been watching everything with growing horror, had made a decision. "Sergeant," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "I witnessed Detective Thorne assault an unarmed civilian. I'm placing him under arrest." "Martinez, stand down." "No, sir." She pulled out her body camera, which had been recording the entire time. "This is on video." His hands were around her throat. "That's attempted murder in front of witnesses." The sergeant looked at Patricia, at the phone in her hand, at the resolve in her eyes. He looked at Marcus, still on the ground, bleeding from a cut on his forehead, but alive. He looked at Evelyn, gasping for breath, the fingerprints already forming on her neck. And he made a calculation of his own. "Cuff him," the sergeant said quietly. "Transport him downtown." Ryan screamed as they hauled him up. "You can't do this! Do you know who I am? I'll destroy all of you!" But his screams faded as they shoved him into the back of a cruiser. The door slammed shut, the engine started, and then he was gone. Marcus got to his feet. Maya ran to him, throwing her arms around his legs. He picked her up, holding her close, his whole body shaking. "It's over, baby," he whispered. "It's over." Evelyn stood alone in the middle of the garage. She was trembling. Her throat burned, her ribs screamed. But she was alive. She was free. Patricia walked over and put a hand on her shoulder. "That was brave," the lawyer said. "What you did, standing up to him like that." "I didn't feel brave. I felt terrified." "That's what bravery is." Patricia squeezed her shoulder. "Now let's go finish this." The video went live at 10:04 p.m. Patricia had sent it to 3 stations simultaneously, just as she'd promised. Within minutes, it was everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, every local news channel interrupting their regular programming. By midnight, it was national. By morning, it was international. The footage was damning. First came the photographs of Evelyn's injuries. The purple-black bruising across her ribs, the finger marks on her throat, the split lip and swollen jaw. Then came her testimony, recorded in Marcus's steady voice as narrator, explaining how she'd texted the wrong number, how he'd found her dying on a bathroom floor, how Ryan had chased them through the streets of Chicago. But the footage that broke the internet was the parking garage confrontation. Officer Martinez's body camera had captured everything in brutal clarity. Ryan's lunge, his hands closing around Evelyn's throat, his screaming threats as they dragged him away. Evelyn watched the video on Patricia's phone in the back of the lawyer's car. She watched herself standing before Ryan, trembling but unbroken. She watched Marcus tackle the man who was strangling her. She watched Maya screaming for her father. "Turn it off," she whispered. "Please." Patricia complied. "The response has been overwhelming. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. Journalists, producers, advocacy groups, everyone wants your story." "I just told my story, on camera, to millions of people. And now you need to tell it again, and again, until it's impossible to ignore." Patricia turned in her seat to face Evelyn. "This is how change happens, not through one video, but through relentless repetition. We have to keep the pressure on." Marcus sat beside Evelyn, Maya asleep against his chest. He'd been silent since leaving the garage, his face a mask of exhaustion, and something else, something that looked like grief. "My mother," he said finally. "She's still in custody." "Not for long," Patricia checked her phone. "I've already filed an emergency motion for her release. With Ryan's arrest, the obstruction charges don't hold water. She should be out by morning." "Should be." "Will be." Patricia's voice softened slightly. "Marcus, you did something extraordinary tonight. You stood up against a corrupt system and won. Your mother will be free. Your name will be cleared. This is a victory." "It doesn't feel like a victory." Marcus looked down at his sleeping daughter. "It feels like survival." They drove to a hotel downtown. A nice one, paid for by Patricia's firm. Security guards were posted at the door. Evelyn had her own room, but she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt Ryan's hands on her throat. At 3 a.m., there was a soft knock at her door. She opened it to find Marcus standing in the hallway, still dressed, looking like he hadn't slept either. "Maya okay?" "She's out. Kids are resilient." He paused. "Can I come in? I couldn't sleep." She stepped aside. He entered and sat on the edge of the bed, his shoulders slumped. "I keep replaying it," he said, "in my head, over and over. What if I hadn't tackled him in time? What if Martinez hadn't been recording? What if—" "But you did, and she was." Evelyn sat beside him. "We're alive. He's in custody. It's over." "Is it?" Marcus looked at her. Men like Ryan don't just go away. They have friends. They have connections. Even behind bars, he could... I know. Evelyn took his hand. It felt natural, somehow. Right. I've spent 2 years being afraid of what he might do. I can't live like that anymore. I won't. So what do? We keep going. We tell the truth. We don't let them silence us. She squeezed his hand. Together. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to face her fully. When I got your text that night, I almost ignored it. I was tired. I had work in the morning. Maya needed me. He shook his head. But something made me read it. Something made me answer. And now... Now I can't imagine not answering. I can't imagine a world where I let you die in that bathroom. His voice cracked slightly. I know we're strangers. I know this whole thing is insane. But I feel like I've known you forever. Evelyn felt tears prick her eyes. I feel it too. They sat in silence, hands intertwined. Outside, the city hummed with life, oblivious to the revolution happening in this small hotel room. Thank you, Evelyn whispered. For answering, for coming, for everything. Thank you for surviving. Marcus lifted her hand and pressed it to his chest. For fighting, for not giving up. They stayed like that until dawn broke through the window, painting the room in shades of gold and rose. The morning brought chaos. News vans were parked outside the hotel. Reporters shouted questions the moment Evelyn and Marcus emerged. Security guards formed a barrier, but the cameras kept flashing, the voices kept demanding. Ms. Carter, how do you respond to claims that you staged this for attention? Mr. Hayes, were you in a relationship with Ms. Carter before the incident? Is it true that Detective Thorne is claiming police brutality? Patricia appeared beside them, her presence commanding. My clients will not be taking questions at this time. A full press conference will be held this afternoon. Until then, we ask for privacy and respect. They pushed through the crowd and into a waiting car. Evelyn's heart was racing. Police brutality? She said. He's claiming police brutality? His lawyer is playing every card. Patricia didn't look up from her phone. They're saying the arrest was unlawful, that Officer Martinez acted without proper cause, that the video was edited. Edited? Everyone saw him try to kill me. They saw what they wanted to see. His supporters are already spinning alternative narratives. Crisis actors, deep state conspiracy, the usual nonsense. So what do we do? Patricia finally looked up. Her eyes were fierce. We flood the zone with truth. We find every woman he's ever hurt. We build a case so airtight that not even the best lawyer in the world can punch through it. She leaned forward. Evelyn, you're not the first woman Ryan Thorne has abused. I'd bet my career on it. Men like him don't start at age 30. There's a pattern. There are victims. And now that you've come forward, others might too. As if on cue, Patricia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and the thin smile crossed her face. Well, that was fast. What? A woman named Sarah Chen just contacted my office. She was engaged to Ryan Thorne 4 years ago. Patricia showed Evelyn the message. She wants to talk. The floodgates opened. Over the next 48 hours, 5 more women came forward. Sarah Chen, who'd had her wrist broken when she tried to leave Ryan. Maria Gonzalez, whose medical records showed suspicious injuries during their 6-month relationship. A fellow officer named Janet Williams, who'd reported Ryan for harassment and been transferred to a different precinct as punishment. Each woman had a story. Each story was a piece of a larger pattern, a web of abuse, manipulation, and institutional protection that had allowed Ryan Thorne to operate unchecked
for over a decade. Patricia compiled everything. The press conference was scheduled for 3 days after the parking garage incident. Enough time to gather evidence, not enough time for the narrative to shift. The night before the conference, Marcus came to Evelyn's room again. "My mother's home," he said. "They released her this afternoon. All charges dropped." Evelyn felt a weight lift from her chest. "Thank God. How is she?" "Mad as hell," Marcus almost smiled. "She spent 2 days in a cell and came out ready to burn the system down. She's already planning to speak at the conference tomorrow." "Louise is going to speak?" "Try stopping her." Now Marcus did smile. She said, and I quote, "If they think they can silence a black woman who marched with Dr. King, they got another thing coming." Evelyn laughed. It hurt her ribs, but she didn't care. "I love your mother." "She loves you too. She told me." Marcus sat down beside her. "She said you have warrior spirit. Said you remind her of herself when she was young." "I'm not brave like her." "Yes, you are." Marcus turned to face her. "Evelyn, you stood in front of the man who terrorized you for 2 years and told him the truth. You did that knowing he might kill you. That's not just brave. That's extraordinary. I couldn't have done it without you." "Maybe, but you're the one who had to say the words. You're the one who has to face the cameras tomorrow. You're the one this whole thing depends on." He took her hands in his. "I believe in you. My mother believes in you. All those women who came forward, they believe in you. You're not alone anymore." Evelyn felt tears sliding down her cheeks. She hadn't cried like this in years. Ryan had trained that out of her, punished her for showing weakness. But this wasn't weakness. This was release. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Tomorrow, the cameras, the questions. What if I freeze? What if I say the wrong thing?" "You won't." "How do you know?" "Because you've already done the hardest part." Marcus wiped a tear from her cheek. "You survived. Everything else is just talking about it." The press conference was held in a downtown conference center. Rows of chairs faced a long table where Patricia, Evelyn, Louise, and 3 of the other survivors sat. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters filled every seat. Marcus stood in the corner, Maya beside him. The little girl wore her Sunday dress and clutched her stuffed elephant. She didn't fully understand what was happening, but she knew it was important. Patricia spoke first, outlining the case against Ryan Thorne. The documented abuse, the pattern of behavior, the institutional failures that had allowed him to continue. Then Evelyn took the microphone. Her hands were shaking. Her voice trembled on the first word. But she thought of Marcus in the corner. She thought of Maya's innocent face. She thought of Louise sitting beside her, a woman who had survived horrors Evelyn couldn't imagine and emerged stronger. She spoke. She told them about the first time Ryan hit her, how he'd apologized, how she'd believed him, how she'd stayed because she thought love meant endurance. She told them about the escalation, the choking, the isolation, the night he held his gun to her head and asked if she wanted to die. She told them about the text, the wrong number, the stranger who came, the man who risked everything for someone he'd never met. "I'm here today because of Marcus Hayes," Evelyn said, her voice growing stronger. "He answered a message meant for someone else. He climbed a fire escape in the middle of the night. He carried me down 4 floors with broken ribs. He got shot at protecting me." She looked at Marcus across the room. His eyes were glistening. "The system calls him a kidnapper. The system calls him a predator. But I'm alive because he did what the system refused to do. He believed me. He helped me.
He treated me like a human being worth saving." She turned back to the cameras. Ryan Thorne is not an anomaly. He's a symptom.
A symptom of a system that protects abusers in uniform, that silences victims, that punishes anyone who dares to challenge the blue wall. Her voice hardened. That system failed me. It failed Sarah and Maria and Janet and every other woman Ryan has hurt. It failed the 11 times Denise Williams called for help before her husband killed her. It fails thousands of women every single day. She leaned into the microphone. But we're done being failed. We're done being silent. We're done accepting a world where monsters wear badges and victims are treated like criminals. She took a breath. My name is Evelyn Carter. I survived. And I'm not going anywhere. The room erupted. Questions flew. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted over each other, desperate for quotes, for angles, for anything that would make their story stand out. But Evelyn barely heard them. She was looking at Marcus, at the tears streaming down his face, at the pride and love and hope written in every line of his expression. She had done it. She had told her truth. And nothing would ever be the same. The aftermath unfolded over the following weeks. Internal Affairs opened a full investigation into Ryan Thorne. The body camera footage, combined with the testimonies of 6 women, made prosecution inevitable. He was charged with assault, attempted murder, domestic battery, and obstruction of justice. His bail was set at $2 million. He couldn't make it. His accounts were frozen pending investigation. His fellow officers, the ones who had covered for him for years, suddenly developed amnesia. No one wanted to be associated with the monster on every news channel. Marcus's name was cleared. The kidnapping charges were dropped. The Amber Alert was retracted. News stations that had called him a predator now called him a hero, though Marcus refused every interview request. "I'm not a hero," he told Evelyn one evening, a week after the press conference. They were sitting on Louise's porch, watching Maya chase fireflies in the yard. "I'm just a guy who answered a text." "You're more than that, and you know it." "I did what anyone should do. The fact that it's considered heroic says more about the world than about me." Evelyn studied his profile in the fading light. In the weeks since that first terrible night, she had come to know this man, his quiet strength, his fierce devotion to his daughter, his deep well of kindness that he seemed almost embarrassed by. "What happens now?" she asked. "What do you mean?" "I mean us. This." She gestured vaguely. "I've been staying at your mother's house. You've been sleeping on the couch. Maya thinks we're having an endless sleepover. But eventually..." Eventually what? Eventually, I have to figure out my life, get a job, find a place to live. I can't stay here forever. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Maya's laughter echoed across the yard. "What if you could?" Evelyn turned to look at him. "What?" "What if you could stay?" He met her eyes. "Not forever. I know we barely know each other. I know this whole situation is insane. But Maya adores you. My mother thinks you're family. And I..." He trailed off. "You what?" "I look forward to seeing you every morning." The words came out in a rush. "I think about you when I'm at work. I worry about you when you're out of my sight. I know that sounds crazy. I know we've only known each other a few weeks, but I feel like you've known me forever," Evelyn finished. "Yeah." He let out a breath. "Yeah, exactly." They sat in silence. The fireflies danced. Maya's laughter rose and fell. "I feel it too," Evelyn said finally. "I've been trying to ignore it because it seems too fast, too convenient, like something out of a movie." "Life is stranger than movies." "Apparently." She reached over and took his hand. I'm not ready to rush into anything. I need time to heal, to figure out who I am outside of Ryan's shadow. I understand. But I'm also not ready to leave. Not yet. She squeezed his hand. Can we just take it slow? See what happens? Marcus smiled. A real smile. The first she'd seen from him in days. Yeah, we can do that. Daddy! Miss Evelyn! Look! Maya came running toward them, her hands cupped together, a soft glow emanating from between her fingers. I caught one! I caught a firefly! Marcus knelt down to his daughter's level. That's amazing, baby girl. Let me see. Maya opened her hands slightly. The firefly blinked its light, then lifted off, floating up into the darkening sky. Oh no! Maya's face fell. It flew away. That's okay. Evelyn knelt beside her. Some things aren't meant to be kept. They're just meant to be appreciated for a moment. Maya considered this with the gravity only an 8-year-old can muster. Like magic? Exactly like magic. The little girl nodded, satisfied with this explanation. Then she looked between Evelyn and her father with curious eyes. Are you holding hands? Marcus glanced at Evelyn, a question in his eyes. She nodded slightly. Yeah, baby, Marcus said. We are. Maya grinned, a smile so wide it seemed to split her whole face. Does that mean Miss Evelyn is going to be my new mommy? Whoa, slow down, Marcus laughed nervously. We're just getting to know each other. It's not... I think it means, Evelyn interrupted gently, that your daddy and I care about each other. And we care about you. And sometimes, when people care about each other, they hold hands. Maya processed this. Okay, but if you do get married, can I be the flower girl? Absolutely, Evelyn said, before Marcus could respond. First dibs. Yes! Maya pumped her fist in victory and ran back to chase more fireflies. Marcus stared at Evelyn. Did you just promise my 8-year-old she could be a flower girl at our hypothetical wedding? I promised her first dibs if it ever happens. Big difference, Evelyn smirked. Relax, I'm a nurse. I'm used to making children feel better with creative promises. And if she holds you to it? Evelyn looked at him, at his kind eyes, his gentle hands, his steadfast heart. At the man who had answered a stranger's cry for help and never looked back. Then I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Louise appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Dinner's ready, and if you two are done making googly eyes at each other, I could use some help setting the table. Marcus groaned. We weren't making googly eyes. Mm-hmm. Louise's tone dripped with skepticism. I've been watching you for 10 minutes. You're definitely making googly eyes. I was not. Marcus Jerome Hayes. I changed your diapers. Don't tell me what I did and didn't see. Louise turned and disappeared back into the house. Evelyn burst out laughing. The sound surprised her. Pure, unrestrained joy bubbling up from somewhere deep inside. She couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed like that. Marcus watched her with wonder in his eyes. What? She asked, catching her breath. Nothing. He shook his head. I like hearing you laugh. I like laughing. She stood up and offered him her hand. Come on, your mother needs help with the table, and I have a feeling she's not someone you keep waiting. You have no idea. He took her hand and rose. She once made me stand in the corner for an hour because I was late for Sunday dinner. How old were you? 34. Evelyn laughed again. And this time, Marcus joined her. They walked into the house together, hand in hand, toward the light and warmth and the smell of Louise's famous fried chicken. Behind them, Maya caught another firefly. This time, she let it go immediately, watching it float up to join its companions in the darkening sky. Some things weren't meant to be kept. They were just meant to be appreciated for a moment, and then set free. 6 months passed like a slow exhale. The trial began in March, when the last of the winter snow was melting into dirty slush on Chicago's streets. Evelyn sat in the front row of the courtroom every single day, her back straight, her eyes forward. She didn't flinch when Ryan was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit. She didn't look away when he stared at her with hatred burning in his eyes. She simply sat there, a living testament to everything he had failed to destroy. Marcus was beside her every day. He had taken a leave of absence from his new job. Hospital security, better hours, better pay, to be there. Louise came when she could, sitting on Evelyn's other side like a fortress of maternal protection. Maya stayed with a neighbor during court hours, blissfully unaware of the darkness being dissected in that wood-paneled room. The prosecution called witness after witness. Sarah Chen took the stand and described the night Ryan shattered her wrist. Maria Gonzalez showed the jury photographs of bruises that had long since healed but never truly faded. Janet Williams, the officer who had reported Ryan years ago, testified about the retaliation she'd faced, the transfers, the harassment, the subtle and not-so-subtle messages that silence was the price of survival. And then it was Evelyn's turn. She had prepared for this moment. Patricia had coached her for hours, walking her through every possible question, every possible attack from the defense. But nothing could truly prepare a person for sitting in a witness box, facing the man who had broken her bones and her spirit, and telling the world exactly what he had done. "Miss Carter," the prosecutor began, "can you describe the events of the night in question?" Evelyn took a breath. She looked at Ryan, really looked at him, for the first time since the parking garage. He was thinner now, his face gaunt, his eyes hollow. Prison had not been kind to him. The other inmates had learned what he'd done, and cops who hurt women were not popular behind bars. She felt nothing. No fear, no pity, nothing. "I was in the kitchen," she began. Her voice was steady. "I had burned dinner. It was an accident. The smoke alarm went off, and I was trying to air out the apartment. Ryan came home early. He was already angry about something at work. When he saw the smoke, She told them everything. The kick that broke her ribs, the calm voice that told her to clean up the mess, the bathroom floor where she had texted for help, praying someone, anyone, would answer. "And the text you sent," the prosecutor said. "It was meant for your brother, correct?" "Yes, but I typed the wrong number. My hands were shaking. I was in shock." "And who received that message?" Evelyn looked at Marcus, sitting in the front row. He gave her a small nod. "Marcus Hayes," she said, "a man I had never met. A man who had every reason to ignore a stranger's cry for help in the middle of the night. A man who came anyway." The defense attorney tried to tear her apart. He suggested she was lying, that she had fabricated the abuse for attention, that Marcus was her lover, and they had staged the whole thing. Evelyn remained calm. "If I wanted attention," she said quietly, "there are easier ways to get it than having my ribs broken." "Ms. Carter, isn't it true that you have a history of mental health issues?" "I have a history of being abused by a man who told me I was crazy every time I tried to speak up. That's not mental illness. That's survival." "And Mr. Hayes, you expect us to believe a stranger climbed through your window to rescue you? That sounds like a fairy tale, Mrs. Carter." Evelyn leaned forward slightly. "It sounds like basic human decency," she said. "Something your client knows nothing about." The courtroom stirred. The judge called for order.
But Evelyn saw the jury's faces, saw the impact of her words landing. The defense had nothing. They had built their case on the assumption that no one would believe a woman over a decorated police detective. They had underestimated how much the world had changed, how much people were hungry for accountability, how much the tide had turned against men who hid behind badges and power. After 2 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Evelyn heard the words from somewhere far away. The courtroom erupted. Gasps, cheers, the sound of Ryan's lawyer demanding an appeal. But she sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, tears streaming silently down her face. It was over. Marcus's hand found hers. She gripped it like a lifeline. "You did it," he whispered. "You won." "We won," she corrected. "All of us." Ryan was sentenced to 23 years in state prison. No possibility of parole for at least 15. The judge, an older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, delivered a scathing statement about the betrayal of public trust, about the sacred duty of law enforcement, about the courage it took for victims to come forward. "Mr. Thorne," she said, looking directly at Ryan, "you used your position to terrorize and abuse. You weaponized the very system meant to protect people. You are not just a criminal. You are a disgrace to the badge you once wore." Ryan said nothing. He stared at Evelyn as they led him away, his eyes promising revenge, retribution, a future reckoning. She stared back. She didn't blink. The celebration at Louise's house that night was quiet but profound. Patricia brought champagne. Marcus made his famous pancakes even though it was nearly midnight. Maya stayed up way past her bedtime, sensing that something important had happened, even if she didn't fully understand what. "To justice," Patricia said, raising her glass. "Late, imperfect, but finally delivered." "To courage," Louise added, looking at Evelyn. "The kind that changes the world." "To family," Marcus said softly. "The one you're born into, and the one you choose." Evelyn raised her glass. She looked around the table, at Patricia, fierce and formidable, at Louise, wise and unbreakable, at Maya, innocent and hopeful, at Marcus, steady and true. "To second chances," she said, "and to the people brave enough to give them." They drank. They ate pancakes at midnight. They laughed and cried and told stories. And when Maya finally fell asleep in Marcus's arms, her face sticky with syrup, Evelyn felt something she hadn't felt in years. Home. Not a place, a feeling. A sense of belonging that had nothing to do with walls or addresses, and everything to do with the people around her. She was home. The months that followed brought healing in small, unexpected ways. Evelyn found a job at a community health clinic on the South Side, treating patients who reminded her of herself. Women with bruises they tried to hide, children who flinched at loud noises, families struggling to survive in a system that seemed designed to crush them. She was good at it, better than good. Her patients trusted her in a way they didn't trust other nurses. They saw something in her eyes, recognition maybe, or understanding, the shared knowledge of what it meant to be broken and rebuilt. Marcus went back to work, but his schedule was different now. He'd negotiated day shifts so he could be home when Maya got out of school. He cooked dinner most nights, simple meals that filled the apartment with warmth and the smell of home. They had moved into a new place, a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but clean and safe. Evelyn had her own room at first, her own space to retreat to when the memories got too heavy. But more and more often, she found herself falling asleep on the couch beside Marcus, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her like a shield. One night, 3 months after the trial, She woke up in his bed. She didn't remember how she'd gotten there. She must have walked in her sleep. Or maybe Marcus had carried her when she dozed off during the movie they were watching. But she woke up with his arm draped over her waist and his breath warm against her neck, and she felt no fear, only peace. She turned to face him. His eyes opened, sleepy and soft. "Hey," he murmured. "You okay?" "Yeah." She touched his face. "I think I am." "You're in my bed." "I noticed." "Is that okay?" She answered by kissing him. It was their first real kiss, not the chaste pecks on the forehead or the nervous brush of lips at the door. This was something deeper, something that had been building for months, something that felt inevitable and terrifying and exactly right. When they finally pulled apart, Marcus was breathing hard. "Evelyn." "I know," she said. "I know we said we'd take it slow. I know I'm still healing. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this is complicated." She touched his chest, feeling his heart pound beneath her palm. "But I'm tired of being careful. I'm tired of holding back. I want this. I want you." "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." He kissed her again, and this time, neither of them pulled away. The wedding was small. They held it in Louise's backyard on a warm September afternoon, exactly 1 year after the night Evelyn texted the wrong number. Folding chairs lined the grass. String lights hung from the old oak tree. Maya served as flower girl, scattering rose petals with the enthusiasm of someone who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Evelyn wore a simple white dress that Louise had helped her choose. Marcus wore a suit, the same one he'd bought for his wife's funeral years ago, but altered now, made new for a new beginning. Liam walked Evelyn down the aisle. Her brother had come back into her life after the trial, apologetic and ashamed for the years he'd spent believing Ryan's lies. She had forgiven him. She had forgiven everyone. Holding on to anger felt like carrying poison, and she was done being poisoned. The ceremony was brief. A local pastor, a friend of Louise's, spoke about love and resilience and the mysterious ways that people found each other. He talked about wrong numbers and right choices, about darkness and light, about the courage it took to trust again. "Do you, Marcus Jerome Hayes, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." Marcus's voice was thick with emotion. "I've never been more sure of anything." "And do you, Evelyn Marie Carter, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Evelyn looked at Marcus, at his kind eyes, his gentle hands, the tears streaming down his face. She thought about all the roads that had led her here, the wrong turns, the dead ends, the moments of despair when she thought she would never escape. And then the text, the wrong number, the man who came anyway. "I do," she said, "with all my heart." The pastor smiled. "Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Marcus pulled her close. The kiss was soft, tender, a promise of all the years to come. The small crowd erupted in cheers. Maya ran up and threw her arms around both of them. "Now you're my mommy for real," she shouted. Evelyn laughed through her tears. "For real, baby girl. Forever." The reception went late into the night. People danced under the string lights. Louise made her famous fried chicken. Patricia gave a toast that made everyone cry. Liam apologized for the 100th time and finally seemed to believe Evelyn when she said it was okay. At some point, Evelyn slipped away from the crowd. She walked to the edge of the yard, where the noise faded and the stars emerged. Marcus found her there a few minutes later. "Running away already?" he teased. "Marriage not all it's cracked up to be?" "Just taking a moment." She leaned against him as he wrapped his arms around her. "Trying to remember all of this. every detail.
Why? Because I spent 2 years trying to forget every day, trying to erase the pain. Now I want to remember everything, the good stuff. She turned in his arms. I want to remember how it feels to be happy. How does it feel? Evelyn considered the question. She thought about everything she had survived, the violence, the fear, the desperation of that night in the bathroom, the terror of being hunted, the triumph of the trial, the slow, patient work of healing. It feels like breathing, she said finally. After holding your breath for so long, you forget what it's like to just breathe, to exist without waiting for the next blow, to wake up without fear. She looked up at him. That's what you gave me. Air. Life. A future I never thought I'd have. You gave yourself that, Marcus said. I just showed up. You did more than show up. You believed me when no one else did. You fought for me when I didn't know how to fight for myself.
You gave me your family, your home, your heart. She touched his face. You gave me everything.
And I'd do it again, 1,000 times, 1,000,000. He kissed her forehead. You're my wife now. That means you're stuck with me.
Promise?
Promise. They stood together in the darkness, watching the party continue without them. Maya was teaching Louise's friends some dance she'd learned at school. Patricia was arguing good-naturedly with the pastor about legal philosophy. Liam was helping clean up, trying to make up for lost time.
Marcus?
Yeah?
Do you ever think about that night? The text?
Every day.
Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't answered?
Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I try not to, he said finally, because the alternative. I can't think about it. I can't imagine a world where you... His voice broke. I can't imagine a world without you in it.
I used to pray for death, Evelyn whispered. Before you.
I used to lie awake at night and pray that it would just end, that he would finally go too far and it would be over. Evelyn, but now I pray for time, as much as possible, every day, every hour, every minute with you and Maya and Louise, every moment of this life I never thought I'd have. She pulled back and looked him in the eyes. You didn't just save my life that night. You gave me a reason to want to live it. Marcus pulled her into his arms. They held each other as the music played and the stars wheeled overhead. I love you, he said. I don't say it enough. I've never been good with words, but I love you, more than I knew it was possible to love someone. I love you too. She pressed her face against his chest. More than I thought I was capable of. After everything Ryan did, I thought that part of me was dead, but you brought it back. You brought me back. They returned to the party, hand in hand. Maya immediately grabbed Evelyn and dragged her to the makeshift dance floor. They danced to some pop song Evelyn didn't recognize, spinning and laughing under the string lights. Marcus watched them, his daughter and his wife, his family, and felt something he had almost forgotten was possible. Hope. Not the desperate, clutching hope of survival. Something deeper. The quiet, steady hope of a future worth believing in. Epilogue. 5 years later, Evelyn stood at a podium in Washington, D.C. The room was packed. Senators, representatives, activists, survivors. Hundreds of people gathered for the signing of the Domestic Violence Reform Act. It was comprehensive legislation, years in the making, that would fundamentally change how law enforcement handled abuse cases. Mandatory training, independent oversight, protections for victims who came forward, consequences for officers who abused their power. Evelyn had helped write it. She had testified before Congress 3 times. She had shared her story with anyone who would listen, over and over.
until the words were worn smooth like river stones. But they still had power. They always would. 11 years ago, she began, a woman named Denise Williams called the police for help. She called 11 times. Each time, they did nothing. 3 weeks after her last call, she was murdered by her husband. The room was silent. 6 years ago, I texted the wrong number from a bathroom floor. I was dying. I had given up on the system. I had given up on myself. But a stranger named Marcus Hayes answered that message. He came for me when no one else would. She looked at Marcus, seated in the front row with Maya, now 13, all legs and attitude and her father's kind eyes. And Louise, older now but still fierce, still unbreakable. I survived because of him, because of his mother, because of his daughter, because ordinary people decided that my life was worth saving, even when the system said it wasn't.
She gripped the edges of the podium. This bill won't save everyone. No law can do that. But it will save some. It will tell victims that they matter. It will tell abusers that there are consequences. It will tell the Denises and the Evelyns that someone is listening. She took a breath. I used to be a victim. Then I was a survivor. Now I'm something else. I'm a wife, a mother, an advocate, a voice for everyone who has been silenced. She straightened her shoulders. And I'm proof that the wrong number can lead to the right life, that broken bones can heal, that the darkest night always ends in dawn. She looked directly into the cameras. If you're out there tonight, hiding in a bathroom, afraid to ask for help, send the text anyway. Make the call. Reach out. You never know who might answer. And you deserve to find out. The room erupted in applause. The president signed the bill. Photographers snapped pictures. Reporters shouted questions. But Evelyn didn't care about any of that. She walked off the stage and into Marcus's arms. Maya sandwiched herself between them, complaining about being squished, but secretly loving it. Louise wiped tears from her eyes and tried to pretend she wasn't crying. "You did it," Marcus whispered in her ear. "You changed the world." "We did it," Evelyn corrected. "All of us. Together." And as they walked out of the building and into the bright Washington sunlight, Evelyn thought about that night 6 years ago. The bathroom floor. The wrong number. The 4 words that had saved her life. I'm on my way. Marcus had been on his way ever since, through the darkness and the fear, through the trial and the healing, through the slow, patient work of building a life together. He was still on his way. They both were. Not toward something, but with each other. Side by side. Step by step. That was the real miracle, Evelyn realized. Not the rescue. Not the trial. Not the law that now bore her fingerprints. The miracle was this: 2 broken people finding each other in the darkness and choosing to walk toward the light. The miracle was love. The miracle was family. The miracle was a wrong number that became the right answer. And as Maya grabbed both their hands and pulled them toward the car, chattering about wanting ice cream and could they please stop at that place with the good sprinkles, Evelyn laughed. She laughed with her whole body, her whole heart, her whole healed and hopeful soul. Because this was her life now. Not a story of survival, but a story of joy. Not a tale of what she had escaped, but of what she had found. A wrong number usually ends with an awkward apology. For Evelyn Carter Hayes, it ended with everything she never knew she needed. And that made all the difference.